Good morning. We're going to write the introduction for the Macbeth essay today. So I posted a couple materials that are going to help you to do that. The first thing that you'll want to do is just review the assignment sheet for the essay because that talks about the introduction. So I've linked a copy of it here. So it says step one. For your introduction, you will relay a personal narrative story that either explains a time you've experienced the topic at hand or what led you to your initial conclusion or interest in the topic in this topic in the play. What's your initial answer to the question? That's the essential question that you are tackling in the paper as a whole. What's your initial answer to this question as it applies to real or to your life? The introduction should lead into some context of the play, a brief summary of the story as it relates to this topic, and it should lead into your thesis, which is step two. So we should already have the thesis and the body part complete. You're looking at Shakespeare's position in that, but this is your opportunity to talk about your own position, which may or may not be the same as Shakespeare's. And the way you're going to illustrate your position is by telling stories. So it's not just an argument about what you think, but it's stories from your experience or the experience of those you're familiar with that have shaped your perspective. So let me show you the steps here, which is another linked document. Remember, this is a new approach to writing an introduction. It's not the typical way to introduce an analytical essay. Usually, literary analysis is dispassionate, meaning it's not something that you're personally invested in, at least in the overt sense. I think we all have feelings about our interpretations that have a somewhat personal element to them, but it's not an I, me, you type of thing. It's typically an academic and somewhat distanced type of writing. But I'm hoping that you expand your repertoire, and I think that literature does speak to us in the level that it sparks our own stories. So this is an opportunity to engage that. So the first step for the introduction, you're going to write a personal and descriptive story. That's what I mean by narrative, that reveals your opinion on the prompt, reveals your opinion on the essential question, rather than just spells it out. You're not just telling me, I think, that destiny controls our lives, and then the choices we make don't matter because, destiny is very powerful. What's the story you're going to tell that illustrates why destiny is the guiding principle in life as far as you can tell? So it's about thinking about the stories that shape your perspective, whether they're your stories, they're stories about people you know. That actually doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be your personal story. You may have certain perspectives on the world because of things that you've seen happen to other people, and that's just fine. That's still a narrative that's personal to you. So the story should allow the reader to visualize the scenario clearly, really see what shaped your perspective. And this section should focus solely on your experience, not on the book. So you're not even dipping your toes into Macbeth just yet. The second piece of the introduction, though, is where you make that transition. You use a transitional sentence that explains the connection between the story you're telling and Macbeth. For example, well, my sins may be lesser, the murderous Macbeth seems to take a similar path on his way to destruction. It's a bridge sentence that's going to draw the connection between your experience or your narrative, or the narrative about someone you know who's close to you, and Macbeth's experience, and the play's perspective. Step three, this is your context. This is where you're going to give the title, author, and genre. Macbeth by William Shakespeare, a play by William Shakespeare, that's the genre. And then the plot details that are relevant to your thesis. So only, you don't have to retell the story, but just the basic context that is appropriate to your thesis. So that is, what context do we need to know in terms of the essential question you're answering. And then the fourth step for the introduction is to include your thesis. And you may have to tweak the grammar to get it to flow more clearly from the language of your introduction. There's steps here for the conclusion. Don't need to worry about the conclusion yet, but I did put a challenge in here to try and use every type of transition referenced in the transition guide on Classroom over the course of your essay. You didn't see that transition guide previously, but I'm going to post it to this assignment link so you can review some of those transitions to help you write the introduction. Those transitions might also be of use in the body paragraphs, and I will give you an opportunity to go back through your body paragraphs and do some revision. So it's an opportunity now to practice using the transitions in your introduction, which you may again use in your body paragraph. Now, so actually I have to link that here. It's not linked here right now. The other document I gave you is a model essay introduction. So I was modeling with an essay about manipulation, which was not one of the essential questions that I made available to you for this assignment, so mostly so I could use this model. But this is an example of an introduction that tells a personal story, uses a personal narrative to give an answer to the essential question on manipulation, and then link that to the play's perspective. So I encourage you to read through the introduction example here. This then bridges to paragraph, topic, sentences, and the conclusion. But for your purposes today, just focus on the introduction. So that's the assignment today. You're going to have the period to draft the introduction to your Macbeth essay. It's due by the start of our next class. So you have the period today and any time afterwards. And then you're going to submit that to this assignment link to get passing credit. Okay, and if you have any questions, just type them in the comment box. And if you need to conference with me, let's make arrangements to